Hello, and welcome to the F Word podcast, where we discuss all things fraud and multifamily. Today, we're going to discuss fraud and BTR. So, before I invite my guest on, as you can see her right over there, I just want to remind everybody wherever you're watching this, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or on your podcast audio listening device of your choice. Wherever you're listening or watching us, please subscribe, follow. If you have a question, leave it in the comments and we'll get back to it for sure. So I just wanted to let people know that. And without further ado, let's jump into this. All right, Stephanie, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I have been in the multifamily BTR space for about 30 years now. I am an OG ApproveShield user.
Oh,
I have been with ApproveShield for a long time, and I am pretty passionate about screening because I feel like that is kind of where operations start going well or start going poorly.
what do you mean by that?
If you get a lot of bad people in, a lot of bad actors, if fraud gets through, those bad actors are going to be the people who are going to find the holes in your lease or in their lease. So you're out already at a weak position. But if you have good, well-vetted residents, which we've proven here at Haven, operations are a lot more efficient. They're a lot smoother. We don't have as many hiccups. And I don't have as hard a time explaining financials.
And that's always a fun conversation, I'm sure.
Always.
Always. Especially when there's a lot of things out of the management company's hands, like fraud. Fraud's out there, and the only way you can combat it is by putting in the right people, the right processes, the right tools to make sure you capture that for sure.
100% agree.
You mentioned BTR. Tell the audience what BTR stands for and what the difference is in just regular residential.
Right. Okay. So BTR is a relatively new emerging asset class. It's been on the scene for a little while. It's definitely growing in popularity. It's a little multifamily and a little single family married together. So build to rent communities are rental communities that otherwise look like an individually owned home. They're single family detached or townhomes. Some of them are horizontal, some are multi-level townhome, but the entire community is rental. So a lot of times we'll talk to developers and say, hey, that looks like a great neighborhood. We're going to buy all of it. and then we rent the houses. So it's a little multi, a little single put together. It's the best of both worlds. It does require a good bit of operating differently because our communities generally under 100 homes in one place, where multifamily, you've got one office and you've probably got 200, 300 homes, 200, 300 units. We don't have that. So we're a little more dispersed. So it does require a little more effort in the operation.
What kind of effort?
So two things. One, geography is not our friend. My team here in Atlanta, they have 3 different properties. They are on the east, on the south, and on the west side of Atlanta. But they have those 3 different properties. So getting there is sometimes a little difficult. So we have to plan things. We have to plan to get out there and be on site. That means we have to plan our move-ins. It also means that we rely on self-guided tours a lot more than multifamily does, which can go very wrong very quickly if you don't know what you're doing.
What do you mean?
So self-guided tours, and we use, there's a bunch of different services. We're kind of stuck with one right now, but their vetting is a big part of starting our application process. Their vetting, you have to put in a selfie, you have to do your photo ID, you also have to put in a credit card. We don't charge. We've set ours up so that people don't have to pay to tour, But between those things, they're doing that preliminary security, ID screening. And if you don't, you'll get an alert when they get there, when they open the door, you get an alert if they don't turn the key in, or they don't, put the code back in to put the key in. And so you have to be going into those homes all the time, because there was a rash, and some of our competitors have had a real big problem with squatters through
Oh,
self-guided tours. And so
wow.
you have to be on top of that. And knock on wood, I have had zero squatters.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Every
Right.
day. But it comes down to the process.
Yeah. So having a good process in place for your operations to maintain an orderly flow is definitely needed, I'm sure.
Critical.
How did you get involved in multifamily?
I fell into it the way that everybody else did.
Everybody says that.
Yeah, I don't know that you go to college for property management.
Well, you do now.
Actually, you do. You can
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
Now.
you can now.
I was when I started, I was married to a police officer. I had actually just graduated police academy.
Oh, wow.
And I know, right?
So you know how to shoot a gun.
I know all the things, but it's a good thing I never became a police officer, and this happened. So anyway, I was married to a police officer. He was a courtesy officer at our property. The property sold, and the new manager coming in happened to be also married to a police officer friend of my then husband. And they were like, I just had my son, and I was doing legal secretary work. And they were like, hey, we need a leasing consultant. I'm like, sales? Okay. So 30 years later, here I am.
No longer a leasing consultant, but
No. Now running it, right?
Now running the show.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It definitely is a frequently told story that the first thing they say is, I fell into it, or I had no idea that I'd be here this long, or the number of times people have said that I would be rich if I had a penny for every time somebody said that. Because it's so true. You get into this industry and you don't realize, how 6 degrees of separation is going to keep you in it.
Yeah, it's a very large industry, but I was having this conversation with somebody earlier that it is a large industry, but it is tiny.
Yeah.
And
everybody knows somebody.
I know, but that's another thing that I love about the industry is it is a bootstrappers industry. If you get into the industry and you do well and you perform well and you learn the things, the sky's the limit. I mean, you turn around and, I know people who 10 years ago were a property manager and today are a CEO.
Yeah. Our industry is amazing at promoting within it to be able to find the next best talent. It's definitely an industry that just now you can go to school for. And just now, I think our industry is starting to wake up and say, hey, we want everybody to pay attention to us. So there's more emphasis on hiring and educating people about multifamily, because you really fall into it. It's something, unless you're planning, and you can have a long-standing career too.
Yep. Indeed.
Like you 30 years.
Yeah, 30 years. I started when I was 5, by the way.
So is there a lesson that you can say you've learned?
I shared with you, I went to police academy after high school. And so I've always been, the inspector, if you will. But I answer the question. I think multifamily and managing property has taught me that everything's a trap. Everything. Yes. And the other part of it is trust your gut. Your gut is generally right. You may have to wait for the proof of your gut, and that's fine. You can be patient, but everything's a trap. Trust your gut.
So leading into trust your gut, is there a fraud story that you could share with me? What's your funny fraud story or interesting fraud story?
So I thought about this a little bit, and there's so many.
There's so many. Oh my goodness.
There's so many.
I was baffled at how much there is out there.
Yeah. I've always joked, if people could be this crafty and like find an actual job, imagine how successful they would be. No, one of my first favorites is, and this is, I think, one of the things that ApproveShield does so much better than anybody else in that competitive space is we would have application screening packets come back and they say ID could not be verified. Now, some of these had gotten through some of the, like scan your driver's license when you go to
Hmm.
tour.
Yeah.
They'd scanned fine. They were fine, right? But then when it came through ApproveShield sent it back and said ID, couldn't be validated or whatever. And then you go through there and you can see the state's copy of the ID was not the photo on the ID that we had. So
Oh, wow.
they had taken the ID and just put their own photo on it. And I'm like,
Wow.
wow,
Wow, that's a lot of
that's a
trouble.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So crisis averted, right? Um, one of
How
my
did you?
maid, look, your ID is not valid. It doesn't check out. I think you need to check with the state about this. I mean, what else can you say, right? What I
Yeah,
wanted
right.
to say was, girl, you need to try harder. But
No,
I
girl, you
didn't.
need to stop. You need to be legit.
Yeah, one of my other recent favorites, we've had this on one of our properties recently. And so we have properties that we manage in-house, and then we have properties that we also have third-party managers on. And I was looking through a report for one of our third-party ones that's actually not very far from one of our internal managed ones. And I'm like, gosh, that girl's name sounds familiar because she came up as a decline. And I was like, I swear that sounds familiar. And I go back and I look at my other property. There's the girl's name again with ApproveShield. And so this is ApproveShield, all of them. At the end of the day, she was declined 4 times at 4 separate properties. And I'm like, are you
Wow.
stupid? At what point do you think you're just going to get by with it?
Yeah,
So
that's
just saying.
crazy. And for
Yeah.
her to keep trying is even more baffling to me
Yeah.
than
I,
anything.
it's like, every time that you get the text message, as soon as your application goes through, ApproveShield is texting or calling you, you
Mm.
would think that over a period of time, she's getting the same thing from ApproveShield. I'm like, okay, so is she in the background, like trying to like buy new credit cards? Or, I mean, is she trying to, I think she had some rental debt. One of them was declined just based on ID. Another one, she had some rental debt. It was like, wow, she's just making it up as she goes. So that was fun.
That always is. I'm just baffled at some of the links, and there are stories of just extreme, buying a whole new identities, which is a thing.
So there's whole Instagram channels dedicated to how to defraud a landlord to get your application approved. Whole
Wow.
whole YouTube channels. I mean, like, I've seen more craziness in that stuff. I'm like, do you really?
Yeah. If they the amount of time that they put in at being a fraud, that they could put into actually
Legit.
working a legit, they would be so
Mhm.
successful because
Yep.
they put so much into it, right?
Absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
you have these people that are doing things that are just, it's crazy. It's
Yep.
crazy the world we live in today.
Indeed.
And like just speaking of the world today, like what did we do 20 years ago? Was the fraud higher?
Okay, so I was around 20 years ago in the days of the abacus and the manual ledger card before we had computers. And, I think about that often. Again, I think one of the things that ApproveShield does very well is there's a little bit of hybrid. Everybody's talking about AI these days, right? And AI can find fraud, and AI, the bots are everywhere.
Yeah.
But we didn't have that ability in the past. In the past, you filled out the application and we had to manually go and like call your landlord and look them up, and we'd
Hmm.
call the employer. Sure, was there fraud back then? Of course. There's always going to be that. But to the extent, to the art form that it is today,
Yeah.
absolutely there was not that much of it. Yeah, so that's ApproveShield is a combination, right, between the AI and actual human interaction. And that's the part that I love, is that there are actual humans making actual decisions based on criteria. It's not all AI. And I think that's one of the reasons that we have a higher decline rate. We catch more fraud. Fraud's our number one reason for decline. But I think that's what ApproveShield does differently. It's not all about the bots.
Yeah, there's systems put in place
Yep.
to catch things, right? But you
Right.
have a real human that's walking your applicant through it and answering questions. Because I know
Yep.
I've heard of services out there that they're more hands off,
Hmm.
and the applicants get frustrated because nobody's calling them back. They're
Yeah.
wanting information, and ApproveShield has their own, that's a different department that, like, if there's decline and they
Yeah.
want to know what's going on, ApproveShield handles all of that, all of the, so your people don't have to worry about explaining
Yeah.
why.
Right.
It makes a difference for sure. So something that you said earlier about advice to yourself, you said, trust your gut. Has there ever been a time that you had to trust your gut that, it worked out for you, or didn't work out for you?
So yeah, I've had a little of both, right? I go back to this, the first time that I had to set out a person that I knew that there were kids in the apartment. She denied it, denied it, denied it, and I kept walking her through. And I was like, her name was Gidget, and I said, Gidget, listen, I want to work with you. We got to get the money, but please just don't put us in a position where you have to, where you'll be put out and your kids will be put out. Like there's other alternatives. My gut was those kids were there. And she kept saying, no, I've sent them away. I've sent them away. And I'm like, okay, well, the sheriff, I'm sorry, it was Marshall there. Marshall's coming. Marshall's coming. I gave her all of the opportunities. And we got there to that apartment and those kids were there. And
Mm,
that was the most heartbreaking, most difficult thing I ever had to do. But my gut
yeah,
said, you know, my gut said, one, the kids are there, and two, give her a chance. And then
you
ultimately,
do.
that's not the business we're in.
Yeah. And you're human. There, of course, it's going to be hard, but at the
Yeah,
same time, you're financially responsible for an asset that has been given to you to take care of. So
yeah,
you definitely have to make business decisions, which are very hard and sometimes not as human like, right?
yeah.
Like it's definitely takes it. It's hard. That's
It
all I
is
can say.
hard.
I can't ever imagine having to be put through that.
No, I can't either. And I think that experience taught me, um, the lease is the governing body of my relationship with a resident.
Hmm.
Everything, every question there is, it is generally covered in the lease. And you know, sometimes the lease doesn't work in the landlord's favor. And I learned from that situation that you have to be fair all the way around, whether it's fair to you or fair to them, it has to be fair. And
Hmm.
so that means being honest with residents. You know what? There was that they forgot to put in that you had to give a 60-day notice. Well, if the lease doesn't say it, I can't enforce it,
Hmm.
you know? So it taught me to work with people as much as I possibly can, but I have to draw the line at I am paid to run a property, and
Yeah,
that is my goal. But that doesn't mean I have to be inhumane.
yeah, definitely. Nobody does. Our industry deals with people and where they're going to live. That's a really huge part of people's lives, is where they live every day. So,
Well, it's the
and
single
try,
biggest purchase you make every month, right? It's the
yeah,
most intimate purchase. It's the biggest
yeah.
chunk of your paycheck. It's I mean, I can understand why people try to skirt the system, right? Because I mean, think of the number of people that are um, housing insecure in
Hmm.
our nation.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand why people turn to that. I think there's other options for them, but I'm not living their life.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one last question
Sure.
I'm going to ask you. Why should someone use ApproveShield?
Oh, so I'll give you some statistics, actually. We did some research lately. This is why somebody should use ApproveShield. We kind of had a line in the sand. When I came to Haven a few years ago, not everybody was using ApproveShield, not all of our properties. We had it in some of the hotspot areas, right? And it had just started in some of them. And Haven, I had been long time using ApproveShield. I've loved ApproveShield forever. But Haven
Okay.
had just dipped their foot in that pool. And they were seeing like this super high decline rate, which you have to get used to. And we're down to about percent. So anyway, we had a line in the sand because ApproveShield was working. We were getting out the bad actors. We had to go through a really hard turn of the rent roll, but get those people out through eviction. And then we had good, well vetted residents coming in on the backside. We saw the impact. And so we finally said, we're going to make a commitment. We're going to put ApproveShield everywhere because fraud does not know a zip code, right? It's everywhere. It's more prevalent some places than others. And I was wholeheartedly behind it. We did some research recently. In the 12 months prior to using ApproveShield, we had a decline rate of 35%. I think some of the properties were using some of the AI tools like, paycheck fraud detection, whatever. So we still had 35% decline rate. In the 12 months, now at that same time, our eviction rate was 13% of those people who had not been vetted through ApproveShield. Now, 12 months post that date that we started ApproveShield, our decline rate is now 54%, but our eviction rate is 2%. We filed
Wow.
19 evictions. Now that's the 19 that we filed. And remember the timelines for filing evictions, we have to file them, but it doesn't mean that they were put out. I think we've had 2 or 3 physical setouts for people who were vetted through ApproveShield. And I digress, but 2% eviction rate is unheard of.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And the other part of that is the bad debt. We don't have the bad debt. Now, yes, our vacancy probably a little bit higher. The time on market probably a little bit higher. I can explain a vacancy rate to a lender a lot easier than I can explain a 3, a 4, a 5% bad debt. Because just because you have a head in a bed doesn't matter. And everybody will say occupancy cures all. I say economic occupancy cures all. And I think that's what ApproveShield has helped us with. One of the things that people say is it's too expensive and it takes too long. Come on now. So it is expensive. 100%. I agree.
We're
But
not for
like,
everyone.
but like everything else, you pay for what you get, what you pay for, and you pay for what you need. And our applicants, we don't get a lot of pushback on the higher application fee. We've just passed that on, right? And then the other part is it takes too long. No, it doesn't. If you listen to the ApproveShield onboarding training and you follow a very defined process, this, then that, all the way through to completion, our average days on our properties in Haven is actually lower than what you guys say. You guys advertise 3 to 5 days for processing. Mine is at a high right now at 2.4 days, but our average in I think September, I mean, we've gone up because we're making some adjustments on things, but our average is less than 2. It's like 1.9. We've been as low as 1.6 days from the time that ApproveShield gets the application to the time that there's a decision. 1.6 days. I mean, even
Wow.
at 2 days. So if you follow the process, right, and you tell people, hey, I'm pressing the button on this application, it's going to ApproveShield, they're going to text you and they're going to call you. So when they do, you have to go in and sign the authorization and be ready to upload your documents. And if you tell people that, man, it just goes like this. And
Yeah.
you're setting the tone for that relationship with the resident. So I think people should use ApproveShield because the return on investment is absolutely demonstrated.
Well said.
I'm a little passionate about it. I don't know if
Yeah.
anybody's told you that.
And we love that. We love passion. We love those that get it, and we feel we're like, bless their heart to those who, because there are some
Oh,
that
right.
yeah, they don't get it, or it's just not for them, and we understand we're not for everyone. But
Right.
if you want to minimize or bring your fraud down, ApproveShield will definitely make that happen over
I
time.
stand behind it 100%.
Yeah.
If you're going to be holding this asset, it is an investment. It is not an expense.
There
If
we
you
go.
are, if your intention is, I need to hold it and flip it and be done, okay, well, I will argue that there's still a value in that investment. But depending on your strategy, yeah, it may not be for you. But I can tell you that if you make the investment, it will bring you the ROI at market.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Stephanie, I really appreciate you joining me today and giving us a little insight to you and multifamily and fraud, because it's definitely out there. It's the F word that nobody likes to talk about, and we're going to start talking about it. We want to start normalizing it and talking through the why people think that they are that they don't either they don't have fraud, or that their fraud's not that bad, or it's not that high. I don't know, like, what are these people thinking? We're going to find out. So we're on a quest, a journey. So
I am there for it.
we appreciate you so much and your time today, for sure. Thank you.
Of course.
And for everyone watching, make sure wherever you're watching us from, make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, so that way you get notifications when we drop the next episode. Okay, we appreciate everyone. Thank you.